All right, you're very welcome along. It's Monday morning, it's Cherno, and we're here with you all the way through until 10. The dream team reassembles, Owen. That's what they told me.
Who told you that?
Well, the YouTube commenter who says, no Gilroy, no party. He's my guy.
He definitely does always say that on a Friday morning. And I'm just waiting for the moment that he accidentally logs into the wrong account and at your Gilroy and the YouTube comment says, no Gilroy, no party.
Well, that would be quite the turn-up for the books, wouldn't it? Wag of the Christie here. We might talk a little bit about that later on. We probably won't today because there wasn't that much happening over the course of the weekend. Just a lot of very misogynistic comment in the newspapers. And yet it is the trial of the century, so I'm no doubt we'll return to it tomorrow. You've been gallivanting. You were in all the way in Croke Park yesterday, and you were in the Tottenham Stadium. How would you compare and contrast? Which is the most beautiful edifice?
Oh, Croke Park, obviously. Croke Park with its...
mile of cheese.
With its mile of cheese. No, like I still think that there's the beauty of Croke Park is when it's full, and like people kind of complain about Croke Park when it's used for the wrong reasons, and it was definitely kind of brought up in the build up to yesterday's game, wasn't it? The idea that these Leinster semi-finals were taking place there. I've definitely seen worse Croke Park atmospheres, and it's become a bit of a pattern where we're kind of used to it. And like, there's no better place when it's absolutely full. But
the two times a year that happens, great, yeah.
Yeah, it's and maybe to a certain extent, actually the fact that some of these games do take place in Croke Park it just doesn't help maybe the product that we're seeing or the way we look at the Leinster Championship in particular. But I still love Croke Park. I still think it's the big day out in Dublin for fans. I think people do enjoy that. I accept it probably would have been better somewhere else yesterday though.
Definitely, I think that it was a shocking decision, and I don't know why they wrote back on the decision that they were talking about previously, where taking the games out was, they were all up for that. It's kind of one of those promises. Definitely we can do that. Then we're not doing that. That would be ridiculous. I'd love to see the maths on it, just to see how much extra they think they made as a result of that, or what the thinking behind it is, and why do they do it? It just doesn't make any sense that you could have had rip roaring atmosphere, and maybe, I don't know, maybe you could give it home and away so that Meath get a game in Navan. And would the game in Navan have been any different? It probably wouldn't have, but it might have been a bit more entertaining for the first 40 minutes. We might have got 40 minutes out of it instead of 10 minutes, which is what we got yesterday. So
yeah, it was like with 38,000 people in there, like you could do a Kildare doubleheader with the 20s on Saturday even, and that way you could have put 22,000 people into O'Moore Park if it was available. I'm not even sure if it was, but one of those sort of stadiums in the early 20s, which probably would have been enough. Would have been a little bit unfair in Westmeath, obviously, having to go up against Kildare support that also has an under 20 game, but I think they'd probably get over that. There was ways around this. Like 38,000 is not the worst crowd whatsoever in Croke Park, and maybe there was this sense that after what happened last year, the Leinster Championship was back. I think we saw yesterday that it's
still
not back.
It's still dead. Still dead.
It's like the opposite of the. Just when you think you're out,
they pull you back in.
They pull you back in. It's just when you think you're back in, they push you back out. That's my takeaway from yesterday.
All right, it's 7:33 this morning. If you want to get in touch, the hashtag is OTB AM at Off the Ball AM on Twitter. You can text us 0879 180 180 is the number. You can text us if you want, old school text. Very few people do that, but occasionally we get a WhatsApp to that one, and that would be grand. Or of course you can leave a comment on the YouTube stream. But at 7:34, it's time for the Gillette Labs performance rankings.
You know, that wasn't an All-Ireland winning performance.
Probably should have won the game based on their second half performance.
Is it a step too far to say it was the performance so far of the World Cup? Maybe not.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.
I'm scratching my head. That performances was just lacked that intensity.
Where do we begin?
We begin in the red, as we do every single Monday morning here on OTB AM on our performance rankings, and we will progress through to the green. We're starting off this morning with Waterford, who are at the bottom after a plot twist, I think it's fair to say, on their season. They were looking like the team that could topple Limerick at the start of this year's championship after what they did in the league. Even early in the championship when they got that draw against Limerick, the question was, marker laid down, how realistic will that be when these two sides inevitably meet in the Munster final and then again potentially in the All-Ireland final? The beginning of the trilogy is what we thought it was with Waterford and Limerick. And what makes yesterday's setback worse is that I think we all kind of want Waterford to succeed, right? I don't think this is like a Mayo situation where you've got people out there who don't want Mayo to succeed.
What?
I mean,
What?
some people. I think everybody.
Say that again.
I-
There are people who don't want Mayo to succeed. Who are these people, Owen?
I think there's a lot of people who get a lot of joy out of Mayo not winning, but it's.
Are you one of those people?
No,
Owen?
I've gone.
Are you one of
I've
those
gone
people?
to the bright side after being on the dark side for so long.
Right. Okay.
But
Sorry,
it feels like Waterford would be the most warmly received Gaelic Games drought story ending. Let's play it that way. So I don't think anybody's overly happy to see Waterford's malaise over the last couple of weeks happening, and that's what it is, and it's out of their hands now for them to even get out of Munster. It's like the same story as the last couple of round robins we've seen. Liam Cahill afterwards was fuming. We weren't good enough, simple as. We hurled like a car in dirty petrol, just chugging along. Just not acceptable to the big Waterford support that came here. Terribly, bitterly disappointing. He also said when the questions were really asked around the cut and thrust of Championship hurling, we were more or less looking to the officials and out to the line rather than what was going on between the lines. That's a pretty damning statement of his team.
It's very damning, and it's very damning in that here was a home game where it was a team who they had just 5 or 6 weeks ago really done what you were supposed to do in that circumstance, not give a sucker an even break. They completely obliterated Cork in the league final and put Cork back to the point where we thought that maybe this entire thing was going to break up, where we've had Cork pundits in studio and on air, and you can only imagine what they're saying in Cork off air when it's not being broadcast about the Cork hurlers, and they put Cork put in a brilliant performance yesterday, so we should definitely give them credit for that. It was physical, it was well thought out, it was brilliantly executed. It was clear that the stuff that they wanted to do they were being allowed to do. But Waterford again had Austin Gleeson sent off where he was already in the book and then got sucked into a row. Now, he defended himself in the row, and I have a lot of sympathy with the fact that he did defend himself in that. And Gerard Hegarty also, it seems, responded a little bit to the shithousing that he was being subjected to. But, like, come on, lads. Every brilliant key forward, every marquee GAA player in the country has to put up with this stuff. And you either put up with it and you're still on the field when the game is in the melting pot, or you don't put up with it and you get sent off, because at the moment the referees are not smart enough to cotton on to what's happening, and we have this culture in GAA where the lippy guy gets away with being lippy, and in some ways is kind of a bit of a hero. So until that gets sorted out, the rules of engagement are that you can't respond, and when you do respond you get sent off. And Waterford played quite well in patches, so 15 on 15 for the last 5 minutes, 8 minutes of the game, would that have changed things? Maybe it would. It's really hard to know. It did feel like that Cork bounce back performance the last couple of years was all coming down the stretch, and they responded in kind, and they've blown that competition wide open now. It's very hard to know what's going to happen. The fact that the other game was a draw and Clare through to the final, what does that mean? Did they rest their team?
Well, it definitely gives Waterford a good opportunity. Cork are the team coming up against a team with something still to play for. Like Tipperary are back in the mix all of a sudden. And that game's on in Semple this Sunday. Those games clash, by the way, with the final day of the Premier League for anybody who's looking to, earmark how their weekend's actually going to play out this weekend. Those final Munster games both taking place at 4 o'clock this Sunday. You have to say that on paper Waterford have the tougher fixture, but there's more on the line for Tipperary. So this thing is not done yet. And maybe this is the sort of path that Waterford need to take to get out of this group if they manage to pull it off on Sunday, this sort of humbling experience that they've had to go through. But I guess Austin Gleeson with 2 red cards in essentially 4 games now in all competitions, that's definitely a bit of concern for Liam Cahill.
I think if you're Clare, you play a B team this week.
Well, why not?
And as a result, I think Waterford are actually going to go through.
Well, the thing is, Cork could just go and win in Semple Stadium, and it doesn't matter what Waterford do. It's very hard to know what sort of tip challenge Cork are going to face. You'd suspect it'll be a tougher one than Waterford will face against Clare, motivationally anyway. Like, I can see why you'd say that about Clare, and
it's just the right thing to do. Rest everybody. Give yourselves a week's rest. You've got a Munster final coming up where you didn't think you were going to be. You didn't feel this year was going to be the year where you catch Limerick, and all of a sudden you're right there with them.
Yeah, you do have a week off after that anyway, So like you've got 2 down weekends. So if you rest your team now, Clare have 2 weekends off before.
Yeah, but
the Munster
imagine
final
somebody gets
against
injured in
Limerick.
that game, the meaningless game.
Yeah, no, I get that, and you don't want to get injured. Like just resting everybody though. Like these are like good tune-ups for later in the season as well, and like that's a very, very good team that Clare will be coming up against this weekend. Look, it's like it doesn't matter. I think that even if Clare were playing a full team, there would still be the thing in the back of their head where they're like, whatever we do today against Waterford, we are going to be out on the 5th of June against Limerick one way or another. So I think that motivational thing in the back of the head, you'd be favouring Waterford slightly. Again, it's just down to what Cork will do, and maybe Cork are the sort of county where if things are going bad, things are going very bad, but if things start to go good, they start to go very, very good.
Yeah.
And this is the sort of
rebirth.
One big game, and could exactly could be the rebirth of this team. I'm not sure if I'm rushing to that conclusion just yet. I think what we've actually seen are some very high highs and very low lows for them recently, which for any other team in the country, or for the most other teams in the country, we would say is actually just inconsistency. But Cork, we tend to read into this a little bit too much and say it's Cork. They have an ability to, go on this massive run. I'll see it when I believe it, and it'll be great to see Cork in the business end of the championship this year because they're a hell of a story.
Yeah, and they were both. They were doing both in the game yesterday. There were periods where Waterford were like, "Oh, absolutely brilliant," and then it was like, "Wow, look at this! Where was this Cork for the last 15 years?" Dave Cos says Dave Cos says Waterford, the Mayo of hurling. We haven't even talked about Wexford yet. Wexford should really be in the red, or Westmeath should be in the green.
Yeah.
Maybe Westmeath should have been in the green. Mark Dunning says, best for Clare to avoid any injuries or suspensions by picking a second string team. I would tend to agree. Like, this whole thing about the integrity of the competition is if you've already qualified, then you're entitled to do what you want.
Oh, totally.
They're the rules. We don't make the rules. The rules are made somewhere else. And, the round robins are amazing, but then there's always dead rubbers. And dead rubbers? What? Dead rubbers? How many of the games are dead rubbers?
Yeah, no, like that's not about the integrity of the competition whatsoever. I'm just thinking from Clare's perspective, just with a week off anyway afterwards, because they just used this as a kind of like last game before limbering up for a challenge against Limerick. But like Clare Limerick in a Munster final as well. After what we saw yesterday, I wonder is yesterday actually the real sort of marker from Clare in that maybe the Munster final isn't. I think, for Clare, the Munster final would be something that they will obviously be really going after, and they would love to win that trophy. For Limerick, it maybe has less importance, but then again, after being set back a little bit yesterday, maybe
it's a weird psychological thing, isn't it? Paul Murphy was talking on the football pod about the hurling pod, obviously not the football pod, about 2013 when they were beaten by the Dubs. They spent like ages trying to psychologically repair from that, and they couldn't that season.
Yeah.
So these we think of these as like they'll just swat it away or men in black it, and it's very difficult to do that. So right.
Yeah, just one quick word, as you say, on Westmeath there. That's like a brilliant result at the weekend. It's kind of reminiscent of Laois beating Dublin, obviously in a knockout game that was in 2019. But it does seem every couple of years we get a result like this. And the first thing I thought when I saw that result for Westmeath was that this was a team that I'd watched play in the Joe McDonagh Cup final last year, and they'd used that to build and to get back to a place where they feel that they can take on some of the teams of Leinster, and they've done that, and they've got a result against one of the top tier teams. Not sure why that was the first thing I thought of, but this whole notion of a second tier competition in GEA, that's what you can use it for, to build momentum, to actually play at a level that suits you, to get confidence, to beat teams week in, week out, and then you'll be ready the following year to actually challenge top teams. Is
the fact that the hurling league is so divorced from the stuff that really matters, is that not something we should be talking about a bit more? Like, hurling is nearly fixed, and everybody says hurling is great, and it is better than football in terms of its structures. But why don't they just go the whole hog and have some kind of a league conference situation where, you still have these competitions, but there's some other competition where the top teams play each other, and then the best 6 go into an All-Ireland series. Isn't there a better way to do this still?
Just don't play the league. Just replace it with a kind of more.
Keep your Leinster and Munster championship, but then have a third conference, which is interconference, where everybody plays each other. Like, scrap the league, but it's championship from the get-go. Wouldn't that be better?
It could well be. Like, there's definitely a few of those kind of like cross-provincial matchups you'd like to see. Like, it's just very messy at the moment with the situation in Munster and Leinster, where Munster is just completely fenced off as this super league almost, and obviously, if there was a Munster winner, there can only be one Munster winner from the Joe McDonagh Cup. It's very, very unfair. They'd have to go into Leinster, and Leinster is obviously just a bit weaker, considering that's where the teams are coming up and down from. So that geographical imbalance that we see in football in a more pronounced way is definitely still there in hurling as well. But the hurling league definitely seems to be...
Anyway, too much good stuff for me to sideline this whole conversation on fixtures nonsense. Apologies.
Toulouse are next up. This is obviously our avenue to get into Leinster, but just on Toulouse very quickly, the Irish Times went through some of the French reaction to the defeat. I'm sure you'll feast on this, and you have been feasting on this, Ger, over the last couple of days.
Well, I mean, you're very... this is I'm calling Munster bias bullshit, putting them in the red. There should be a special blue section, which is top of the table, and it should be Leinster. None of this, oh, Toulouse weren't very good, were they? Oh, they were very disappointing, weren't they? Oh, it's terrible that Toulouse didn't show up and didn't perform. Screw you, buddy. Toulouse were bloody brilliant for like 15 minutes. I mean, okay, their defence was good. They scored an outrageous, like the perfect, terrifying fear try, and Leinster were like, no big deal. We don't care. Go on, give me the reaction here. Explain why these are in the red.
A lesson in rugby that Toulouse rarely receives is the headline in Le Figaro.
Yeah.
They wrote, Leinster shines with its organisation, its style of play programmed and recited off by heart. Cold efficiency. The hard learning of the very high level continues for the golden generation of Stade Toulouse, in pain this time. Then there was also L'Équipe. Toulouse could never express themselves, always retreating because of pressure, and undoubtedly paid for the excessive energy of their quarter-final last Saturday against Munster. See, Munster did soften you up. L'Équipe said it, the most important sports publication in the world. Toulouse were only a shadow of themselves, a striking contrast with the Irish, who were aggressive on the advantage line and always perfectly positioned. And then lastly, they said, Leinster's combinations of alternating play testify to the perfect knowledge the Irish have of their game. In comparison, Toulouse's game seemed telegraphed. So yes, this is like a win for Irish rugby. Let's just forget about the fact that this is a Leinster win. This is praising Ireland and the Irish rugby culture that we have in this country.
Was it 10?
It's a win for everybody.
10 of the starting team that played against France in the Grand Slam decider, as it was built. Yeah, not a bad performance, not a bad weekend's work.
Yeah, no, they're excellent. Leinster were absolutely excellent, and the deja vu conversation that we felt there was a chance we might have been having just isn't going to happen now, and that was with regards to power and whether or not Leinster would be able to handle it in the latter stage of the competition. That Toulouse pack was obviously excellent against Munster the previous week, but people who know a lot more about it than I do were saying that Leinster have fixed those issues, and that definitely came through at the weekend, and it's probably going to be something we see in the final as well because of the double whammy of Leinster being better and Will Skelton being out for La Rochelle. Well, Leinster will very much fancy their chances in that final.
I think people do forget too that it wasn't the full Leinster team at any stage. They never managed to deal off a full deck.
No Sexton last year.
No Sexton, but also Andrew Porter was on the bench. Caelan Doris didn't start. There were a few others who were out as well, and their strength and depth wasn't as good last year as it needed to be. So they fixed a lot of those issues. Their strength and depth could still do with a little bit of a boost, but at the same time, they now look like a squad who are hopefully going to be able to deal with the issues that are coming their way. A big caveat to that is Tadhg Furlong. The immediate post-matches like this doesn't look like it's season ending. So let's wait and see what comes back from that, because it's a very different scenario if Tadhg Furlong is playing and if he isn't.
Yeah, like I've kind of come to this stage as well where Tadhg Furlong just turns us all into people who love dad jokes. Like you're sitting there watching Tadhg Furlong and you're like, don't say it, don't say it, don't say it, and you end up tweeting, oh, Tadhg Furlong's a midfielder, Tadhg Furlong's a back, and it's like, this is like the 400th time I've made this joke because Tadhg Furlong keeps doing things like this, but it's never not funny, of course.
He's pretty good, isn't he?
Yeah, like if he's missing for the final, obviously it makes it more interesting. Leinster won't want that, but he's obviously the unreplaceable aspect of all of this. But Leo Cullen seemed pretty okay with it in the aftermath. He was like, it's nothing to be overly concerned about. We should have a fitness bulletin from Leinster, I think, this afternoon.
Good morning, lads. Are we sort of begrudging Leinster rugby as we need to be underdogs? It's other teams underachieving when Leinster were just that good, and I'm not their number one fan, but I'm Irish. Yes, Shifty, correct. Fergus Keogh says, yes, Jared, hell with poor Toulouse. Praise Leinster's brilliance. I mean, this is the mealy-mouthed performance rankings brought to you by Munster's Owen Sheehan today.
Go on, praise Leinster's brilliance there. Go on.
But they were sensational. They were absolutely sensational. Brendan O'Brien on the papers yesterday made a great point about how Lancaster is kind of the de facto Ireland coach, in that he coaches the Ireland players day in, day out, and that keeping him involved in this whole setup where They have the national style, which is obviously brought to you by the brains trust of Paul O'Connell, who's there, but under Andy Farrell's guidance. And Andy Farrell's definitely been very important in giving everybody that freedom at international level to express themselves. They're bringing that back to the club. The club is like clearly one of the best coached, best run organisations in the history of Irish sports. Like if Leo Cullen gets the CEO job and Stuart Lancaster gets the head coaching job, that's kind of a dream scenario, isn't it?
Yeah, like I mean,
Because then you're going to have Lancaster for as long as he wants the job.
yeah, you've got to keep these guys in the Irish system, and I think everybody's going to be okay with that one way or another, because as we see, Leinster and Ireland have such a close link up in terms of playing resources at this point as well, that even if there is no eventual gig with the IRFU, which a lot of Irish rugby fans will want, being involved with Leinster is still a pretty good contribution to Ireland as a whole.
What do you think of the Toulouse jersey? Asks Shifty Lads genuinely. Do you like these things, lads? I actually can't remember. I was too busy watching the game. You could tell me. You could ask me now what colour Toulouse are playing in. I'd be like, Leinster played in their blue. I mean, what was unusual about it?
I'm the last person you want to be asking about this when it comes to. We've been through this when it comes to jerseys, when it comes to colours that teams are wearing. I'm not the guy to ask.
My kids were very interested in the pink warm-ups that Leinster had. I was like, I hadn't seen them too often in the past, but so it's the red jersey, the normal stereotypical red jersey.
The one with there's like a black stripe down the middle of it.
I don't know.
But yeah,
Red,
are we happy?
Red versus blue, good.
Yeah,
generally.
Absolutely. Are we happy? Well, actually, so why didn't Chelsea wear blue on Saturday? That I did notice, that Chelsea were wearing fluorescent yellow rather than blue, and neglecting the fact that they could have been red versus blue. Are we happy there? Are we happy with, like, I mean, your...
Yeah, you're done.
No, your appraisal of Leinster's brilliance. Is there anything else you want to say? Any other...
Toulouse jerseys are very nice. I have to say, they're very nice. They're like... there's a black and white kind of Newcastle stripe down the breastbone. And, the Peugeot sponsor with the cool lion logo. But who cares? We beat the crap out of them. Screw you, Emile Entamac, and... handsome assassin bastard DuPont. Screw you all. We killed you.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very happy for you and your boys. Next up in the Amber this morning, we have Manchester City, who've given us something to think about next weekend. Like, this final day of the Premier League season is going to be pretty good, I suspect. There'll definitely be a title race on the line unless Liverpool manage to drop points midweek. But
you're channeling your inner Nathan Murphy here, are you?
Yeah, I'm going for that. I think yesterday was a significant enough moment. Like, I definitely would have been interested to see what would have happened
if Mikel Antonio decided to not be like. So, I mean, what?
I don't know what happened there. Like, I mean, he obviously takes it very quickly. He's not even close with the effort is a thing, and he looked so devastated afterwards. I don't know. That was the opportunity. Like, I think Liverpool against Southampton, with their reputation of shipping huge tallies, would have been interesting had Manchester City been beaten by 2 goals yesterday. But as it turned out, it was a draw. Fabianski keeps this thing alive. Riyad Mahrez misses a penalty again. Obviously, last season that miss against Liverpool doesn't feel too long ago. And like, it just keeps this thing going for a little while. I get the sense, listening to Manchester City players afterwards, that they're not overly worried about this. Jack Grealish laughing at the fact that it's going to be Aston Villa on the last day of the season. But what do you think? Are your boys going to gift this thing to Liverpool?
I mean, just for a moment, picture the fever dream of the Liverpool fan every night this week, getting longer and longer and longer. You know, early in the week it's just the first 5 minutes and it's still 0-0. But as the week goes on, somehow Steven Gerrard intervenes with some magnificence. Philip Coutinho has signed his deal. He's now a permanent Aston Villa player. Philip Coutinho, who basically set his whole thing in motion by asking for a transfer and giving Liverpool the money to sign Virgil and Alisson. It comes full circle and the ball falls to him with 2 minutes left to go and it's 0-0, and Philip Coutinho skies it over the bar. Oh! How did it happen? Is that the fever dream?
Possibly. That would be very, very funny. I hope that happens.
No.
As much as I want to see the drama. Like, if this...
Coutinho 0 assists and 0 goals in the last 8 games, but they've decided they needed to sign him anyway.
The thing is, like, the Coutinho commentary would just be like Aguero in 2012.
It would be amazing.
And it would be Manchester City who get done on the final day of the season.
And a full knee slide in his suit from Stevie G. And the Villa fans kind of reluctant to celebrate because they're like, hang on a second, why? You're very excited about this. You're very, very, very... I mean, we're excited. Yay, why is he so excited? Why does this mean so much to him?
I mean,
does this mean
matters.
He's going to leave if he gets really good? We're kind of trapped in this weird scenario where we want Steven Gerrard to be like good, mediocre, not good, great. Because if he's good, great, he's going to leave. But if he's good, mediocre, Liverpool won't give him the gig. It's like a kind of, don't reach your ceiling, please. Maybe your ceiling could just be like 7th, never top 6.
So you're talking about him there as if like his ceiling is very, very high, and as if like Aston Villa are like protecting this guy and is trying to keep him a secret.
Nah, did I? Was that what I said?
Well, it just seems that way.
I don't know. I mean, let's wait and see how well they do in the transfer window. We'll see.
And give him a full season, I guess. But yeah, like yesterday makes things a little bit more exciting, and we're going to have something to think about more or less that you'd expect on Sunday. Like
it's interesting that it is interesting that City blew the chance to win it, and they went 2-0 down before they woke up, and like they got a lot of help from West Ham. They got a lot of help. It was Mayo-esque from West Ham in the All-Ireland final. 2 own goals, really, like a penalty and. A bad own goal as well, like not one of those ones where you're like, I totally understand what you're trying to do there. It's like, if you just don't touch that, the only thing that you can do there, head that into your own net. So maybe don't do that. Maybe I'm being unfair on West Ham. They did very well, much better than most teams done against Man City. So I don't know.
Manchester City in the amber after that performance yesterday. In the green, we've got Dublin football and we've got Liverpool. From their relative performances over the course of the weekend. You might just we skip on to Liverpool just since we're on this topic. Like, I mean, it's already, I suspect, without whatever happens over the next couple of weeks, one of these great seasons for Liverpool fans, one that they're not going to forget too quickly. And Saturday, you can make an argument that maybe Chelsea deserved to win it. Liverpool and their inefficiency or their inability to create an extra time maybe is an argument for that, but I'm not sure if I necessarily buy it. It felt very similar to the Carabao Cup final, where if there was a winner throughout the match you might have thought fair enough, but come penalties and come that Sadio Mane miss, I actually did think it was going to be Chelsea who were going to win it. That Thomas Tuchel moment where he's banging the ground with his closed fist in celebratory mode, to come back from that in the end where the Chelsea fans were, and for Diogo Jota in particular to bury that penalty, that took cojones. And obviously Tsimikas with the finishing penalty, an unlikely hero on FA Cup final day.
It obviously did. It's so in the lap of well, it's obviously not in the lap of the gods because they do all the work on the penalties, but like I presume Chelsea are doing similar work. So they've kept it alive. Is it great that they managed to keep it alive, or is it a little bit concerning that the injuries are starting to pile up, and the performance wasn't great?
Well, does this come back to your point and your argument with Nathan last week about what Liverpool actually do with the available playing resources? That if Van Dijk is in the amber fitness-wise, if Fabinho's in the amber fitness-wise, if Mo Salah's in the amber fitness-wise, are you playing them against Southampton tomorrow night? No,
that the league is gone. Like, I know you've put Manchester City in the amber, but like it's not like...
But it's not gone. That's why they're in the amber. It's the very definition of still being alive before this weekend.
It's really not, though. Is it? Like, it's Villa at home that they have.
Yeah.
They're a 3 to 5 goal better team than Villa.
I'm literally just about to check what the odds are in this game, but are they 3 to 5?
The odds will be Man City -2 is 7 to 5.
Yeah, it just makes it a little bit interesting, and the fact that Manchester City missed an opportunity that can sometimes destabilise a team. Like, the thing is, we thought that Manchester City would be destabilised after what happened against Real Madrid, and then they went out and smashed Newcastle United that weekend, didn't they? So they seem to have an ability to forget those things quite quickly because they also
rested. Like, again, Pep no subs, which is totally weird. Very bizarre. Again, no subs, and Foden didn't start. So like,
yes, they'll have a fully fit Phil Foden to come into the team next week, and like Sterling didn't get any minutes yesterday. Gundogan was on the bench, wasn't he? And he didn't actually come on. So like they have pretty much a fully fit squad available to choose from, and like I mean it would of course be a shock if Aston Villa took points off them next weekend, but it just makes it interesting. It just keeps us going till the final day of the season. Liverpool at home to Wolves.
I'm not saying don't watch it, but I'm saying that like if you're Liverpool and you get injuries now in these last 2 games, and then you lose the Champions League final because Mo Salah's injured, or Virgil van Dijk is injured, or Fabinho is injured, or all 3 of them are injured. Like if all 3 of them are gone, or there's doubts about them, how confident do you feel about them being able to beat Real Madrid in a one-off game? I don't feel particularly confident about that. Like the Champions League, I know they've said from an emotional perspective they want to win the league in front of their fans, and they want to have that homecoming in front of their fans, and they want to be free post-COVID to celebrate a league properly. And I get that. There may be one coming in the future because Jurgen Klopp is staying and they've loads of money. But like the Champions League is right there for them, and winning another Champions League elevates them into all-time great territory. 2 Champions League in a couple of seasons, in 3 seasons, and a beaten final at the start of that run, and like really a very regretful COVID 2-legged defeat. Like they are definitely one of the best teams in the world at the moment, and therefore one of the best teams potentially of all time. Like win a second Champions League and you write your name in history. That's the put the chips in the middle of the table for the game against Real and go for it. No one will ever regret that.
They should also be able to beat Southampton without those players, so it may not necessarily be a black and white decision. And also, you're 1, 2, 3 days away from those injuries being sustained. Not in the case of Fabinho, but in the case of Van Dijk and Salah. Are those guys actually going to be available to play on Tuesday night? Probably not. So it may not be even an either or. It may be let's go for both of these. And
Wolves have literally nothing to play for in the last day of the season. So like you're gonna stroll those games anyway. Like.
Yeah, like the thing is, it's just Southampton on the road. If that game was at Anfield tomorrow night, you'd be just a little bit more confident. But if they get through that Southampton game, then it's obviously very much game on in the final day of the season. And wasn't it in the 2018-19 season, or was it 17-18? When there was City versus Liverpool, like City did go behind, didn't they, or they conceded early on that final day of the season and made things just a little bit edgy. There was no problem in the air for them. They did end up clinching the title, but strange things can happen on the final day of the season, as Manchester City know very, very well. Finally, the Dubs, they are good at football. They are very much one of the favourites for the All-Ireland Football Championship. They are into a final, and they will have to beat the mighty Kildare to retain their title in a couple of weeks' time. How do you feel about that?
Well, I was looking it up there as well. Dublin 7-1 on.
Wow.
The spread is 6. Dublin -6 is evens. Kildare +6 is 11-10. So spread is 6. I think for the rest of the country, unfortunately, Dublin are back, and they have a level of conditioning that they appear to have this year that they didn't seem to have last year. They certainly have a purpose about them. They're playing with that anger, that chip on their shoulder that only 7-time All-Ireland champions can have, which is so weird because like they have all the gifts that you need to be 7-time All-Ireland champions and still a little bit chippy and a little bit angry. So yeah, that puts the cat amongst your power rankings, doesn't it?
Not really. I pretty much said that Kerry and Dublin are the 2 best teams in the country, and I don't think we've seen anything over the last couple of weeks that have changed that. I don't understand how anybody can still cling to this notion that Dublin aren't in the top tier.
Can we just go back to the league when everybody was telling us that Dessie Farrell couldn't coach? Can we just remind everybody about, are they getting good coaching? Is this a good team? Is this team's rubbish, isn't it? They're like, like it was like, I think Dessie Farrell has proved to be an excellent coach, right? He won All Ireland first time out. He's got exactly the same track record as Jim Gavin had at this point. He's going to go All Ireland win, All Ireland defeat in a semi-final, and
now 5 in a row.
Like, I mean, I don't think they're going to do 5 in a row because I think Kerry are too good. But
this Dublin team isn't as good as the Jim Gavin team. Like it's possible for those things to both be true, that Dublin are still.
But isn't it also possible that Dessie might be also an excellent coach?
Like, very, very possible.
He did win All Ireland in COVID with almost no time to work with the team.
Yeah, like they were coming from the base of being All Ireland champions.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. I mean,
5 in a row All Ireland champions. They're the best team in the country by a distance. I do still think that time will tell how this thing will go. I just think one thing we can be clear on now is that Dublin are absolutely one of the favourites for the All Ireland, as opposed to some sort of also ran who may have a puncher's chance in a big game. They don't have a puncher's chance. They will absolutely be close to being favourites in every single game they'll play between now and the end of the season.
And I think the odds are actually changing before our eyes because of the quality of the performance and the fitness of the players and the individuals. Like when James McCarthy didn't start the first game, I was like, oh, what's the story here? But then obviously
he was brilliant yesterday.
Things changed.
He was absolutely class yesterday.
They were just bringing him back. They were just managing his minutes. They were just doing what like Leinster and Ireland do. They were like, okay, we understand there will be times later on in the year where we need you to be at your very best. And like, you know, generational footballer, him, generational footballer, Fenton in midfield, generational footballer, Conor Callaghan, and maybe Kilkenny reaches the position of being a generational footballer. That's the backbone of your team right there.
Definitely think Kilkenny could be in with a shout of getting like an individual footballer of the year sort of gong soon. It felt last year was maybe one of those moments where you thought Kilkenny's definitely making more of a contribution on the scoreboard. Maybe the stats don't back that up. That just kind of is how it felt. And yesterday, maybe it was 5 points he got all from play yesterday, so he's definitely contributing more on the scoreboard. The one thing that you would be getting hope from if you were Kildare is just the amount that Dublin conceded yesterday while being very, very comfortable. 114 was what they conceded at the end yesterday, which is a pretty big tally considering this felt like 2020 when they absolutely destroyed Meath. But what they conceded was not like that at all. In fact, it's been 5 years since Dublin have conceded that much in a Leinster Football Championship. It was the 2017 Leinster Football Final against Kildare where they conceded more than 114. So they've gone through 5 years of not conceding that amount in this competition, and they did yesterday. So that defence is definitely...
I think they won that game by 10 points as well, didn't they?
Yeah, don't get me wrong, they absolutely hockeyed them, as they did for everybody for the last 10 years. Right. But that's the one nugget of hope if you're Kildare.
1A, 1B in the performance rankings, we're saying they're on a tier on their own at the moment, and then Derry are third, are they? Is that? We'll have to wait and see. Shifty Lad says, brilliant Jaron Owen. I never noticed jerseys, only it was great they were red and we were blue. That's Shifty, who 2 minutes ago was telling us, I'm not really a Leinster fan, but now he's we were blue. Welcome aboard the bandwagon, is all I'll say to you. O'Toole 1905 says, lads, I'd love a rule to be in. If any cup final is 0-0 after 2 hours, the cup goes back on the shelf, no winner, no parade, everyone go home. That would make them play and compete.
Yeah. I kind of like the build-up of the tension over
the penalties.
Yeah, or even just throughout the 90 to 120 minutes, just the real sort of tightrope nature to extra time. One mistake and it could all be over.
Paul McGee says, this week is when the hope kills you, hoping Gers mighty Villa do us a favour on Sunday. Thoughts on O'Gara versus Leinster? It's kind of sickening for Leinster to be like, oh, it's going to be O'Gara again. Oh, no. O'Gara versus Sexton will... there might be a narrative around that in the build-up to this game, perhaps. John Claffey says, is West for La Rochelle that bad at goal kicking all year round or just in the pressure games we get to see near the end of the season? It was the same last year. Damien says, I'm surprised that La Rochelle's goal kicking with Rog as coach. Was it Rugby Pass or Rugby Lad or one of those had a picture of O'Gara looking down going at the pitch going, get me in my boots, lads. Conor Pratt says, surely Farrell wants the top English gig at some stage. I don't know. I mean, I think the likelihood is that Andy Farrell's going to be the Ireland coach for this World Cup cycle and the next one. Robert Moss says, enough structure talk. Hurling structures aren't much better than football. It's just a better sport and spectacle. I don't know. We'll come back to that.